guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather. I really like to read, and today we're here to talk about all of the books that I read in January. But let's talk about the actual books. I'm going to tell you a little synopsis of each one, as well as what I rated it, what I thought about it, and we're going to carry on with our lives because this video is going up late. The first book that I read in January was actually a carryover book from 2023 because I didn't quite finish it in December, and that is Kingdom of Ash by SarahJMaas. This book, this series, one of my all-time favorites now. I absolutely loved it. And y'all know me, I was not the biggest fan of Throne of Glass or Crown of Midnight. I found the writing to be a little bit juvenile and to lack some maturity and depth. But as we went into the series, particularly by the time we got to Heir of Fire, I was absolutely in love. And I think that this series finale did what any series finale should do and just like made me wish that we could get a book of just the characters that made it happily ever after. Like, I would read about certain characters making their breakfast every day for 1,000 more pages. But I can't really talk about this book, but if you have read any of Throne of Glass, it is very worth getting to the end. I sobbed tears, I screamed shouts of excitement, and honestly, when I finished this book, I just wanted to hug it. So worth it. Every page in this book is worth it. I rated this book an easy 5 stars. Next up, we have a book that I rated 2 stars. I'm just gonna get that out of the way now. This is A Winter in New York by Josie Silver, and this might be my least favorite book I've ever read in the history of my reading career. I read this for an in-person book club with some of my teacher friends. We get together, we discuss books, we have a great time when we eat really good food, but this book was not written for me. So what's this book about? This book is about our main character. I can't even remember her name. I have blocked it out of my brain, but she's from London and she moves to New York to kind of relive some of her mother's favorite memories. Her mother loved New York, and so our main character moves there. Our main character and her mom bonded a whole lot while she was growing up over a gelato recipe. It is a recipe for plain vanilla gelato. While she is here in New York living her life, she stumbles across this place that makes gelato, a gelateria. They have this big family business. It's thriving. Everybody in New York loves their vanilla gelato. Can you see where we're going? It happens that this is the same exact recipe that our main character knows, and there is a problem. There is a conflict because the one sole member of this family-owned business that knows the gelato recipe is struggling with his memory and he may forget it. She's like, I know the recipe and I can help, but I'm not supposed to know the recipe, so like I'm gonna have to like help and not really give them the actual recipe. So like everything in this book is founded on lies. She falls in love with one of the members of this family. It is a romance, a kind of contemporary chick lit romance type book. That is a lie that their relationship is built on. There is another lie that like starts the book in the prologue that this relationship is built on. And I get it, romance books are going to have miscommunication, but this book like would not have existed without miscommunication and lies, and it drove me crazy. Next up, I read the book Shark Heart, a love story by Emily Habick. Now, this was for another in-person book club that I go to, and I really loved this book. I got very emotional over this book. So the premise sounds a little bit crazy, and some people that I have talked to have kind of like laughed at the premise because it does sound weird. So we're living in an alternate version of the world that we live in right now. Everything seems totally normal. Our main character, Lewis, is a school theater teacher. He has just gotten married to his wife, Ren. But the thing that makes this world different than our world is there is a disease that people can get. It's pretty rare, but it's possible to get it that slowly mutates you into an animal. This can be a reptile, it can be a bird, and in the case of Lewis, it is a great white shark. The issue with this is that you are, turning into this animal that has different motivations, different predatory instincts, but you also retain your memory. So it's pretty sad and pretty devastating. And our couple, Lewis and Ren, have just gotten married, and in their first year of marriage, they're having to come to terms with the fact that everything in their life is going to change. The first third of this book I would have given 5 stars to. I loved it. It got me super emotional and in my feels, but what I did not know going into this book was that It had different sections, and each section kind of felt like its own story and started following new people who were connected to Lewis and Wren, but it wasn't their story anymore. And I just wanted more of Lewis and Wren. And so that is ultimately why I knocked down a star. I just wasn't expecting what I got. But the heart of the story and the heart of all of the stories contained in this book was beautiful and really powerful, but I gave this one 4 stars. Continuing on my 4-star streak, I read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the sequel in the duology that contains Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. Being as this is a sequel, I also cannot really say much about this book, but I can say that Divine Rivals very much feels kind of like a World War I, World War II type setting, but it happens to be in a magical world. The magic is not extreme, but there are gods and goddesses. It follows kind of its own mythos and lore, and the war that is going on is between gods. In the middle of all of this, we have Iris and Roman, who are newspaper correspondents. And they're kind of like workplace rivals. Like, think about Jim and Dwight, but if Jim and Dwight were a boy and a girl and there was this like love story tension going on under the surface, that's Iris and Roman. They are so cute together, and their love story was just absolutely the most stunning, beautiful work of art I have read in a fiction book in a long time. So events of the first book wrap up, we get the second book, and I really, really liked it, but it also wasn't exactly what I expected, and I wanted even more of Iris and Roman in this book. So ultimately, while it was still amazing and Rebecca Ross's writing is beautiful and I want to read everything she's ever touched now, I did give this one 4 stars and not 5 stars like I gave Divine Rivals. Next up, we had another SarahJMaas book, and that was House of Sky and Breath. Obviously, Crescent City 3 came out at the end of January, and me, being the person that I am, had not read the second one yet. I got spoiled for the ending of this one like 2 years ago, and so I was like, why would I pick it up if I already know how it ends? But my best friend got me this for Christmas. I read it. I'm so glad that I read it, because even though I was spoiled for like the big thing, it still didn't happen exactly how I expected it to happen, and there was so much else contained in this book that I really needed to know before I could read the third one. So I really enjoyed this book. I know there are mixed opinions about this second book in the Crescent City series, but I really liked it, y'all. Bryce is my girly pop. I love her so much, and this series will be a favorite. Throne of Glass is still above it, but Crescent City is in second place as far as the SarahJMaas world goes, and I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. Next up, we had The Fury by Alex Michaelides, which I have my own copy of it, but I am lending it to a friend for book club. Can you see? I read a book, I give it to other people so that they can also read it for book club. This happens quite a bit, but I got my copy from Book of the Month, and this one was really fun. So the premise is that we have a famous Hollywood actress. Her name is Lana, and she kind of surrounds herself with some friends. She's actually retired at this point. She is married, she has a son, and some of her closest friends go with her to this island that she owns for like a little getaway. While they are there, a murder happens, as it is a murder thriller. But this book is interesting because it's actually narrated from one of Lana's friends, and his name is Elliot. And Elliot is telling the story in a very interesting way because he kind of gives you the basics of what happened, and then we start jumping back and forth in time, and we realize that Elliot might not be as trustworthy as he makes himself out to be. This book was full of twists and turns, and something that I personally loved about it is that it was full of theater. There were some things that really annoyed me about it, and some like consistency things that I still don't think quite made sense, but the twists and turns that Alex Michaelides is able to throw into his books makes his stories worth it for me. And while I did give The Silent Patient 5 stars, I gave The Maidens, I think 3.5. This book was a 4-star book to me. Another book I read for February book club, I'm trying to make sure I have my dates right. I read a lot of book club books in the month of January. I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Now, this was the last book I had to read in Taylor Jenkins Reid's like California celebrity series. They're like all standalone books, but they're interconnected. If you've read them, you know what I mean. So this book, I also thought I had been spoiled for. And like in a sense I was, but not in the way I thought that I was spoiled. This book is about Evelyn Hugo, who is an actor who becomes very popular, kind of think like an Elizabeth Taylor, Marilyn Monroe kind of sex symbol. Over the course of her career, her life is kind of documented by the husbands that she had. She was married to 7 different men over the course of her life, but we also find out that Evelyn's true love may not be what it appears. And so it's basically just like the saga of her life, but this one is also told in an interesting way because we are getting Evelyn's story told to somebody who is going to be writing an article about Evelyn. And so it's kind of like this interview back and forth format. Taylor Jenkins Reid is so good about throwing mixed media in there every now and then. And I thought this book was fascinating. I thought it was well written. Taylor Jenkins Reid does what she always does with these kind of celebrity pieces where like you really feel as if you could go and Google this person and find the list of their filmography. I really like Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. So this was a fun one, and I gave this one 4 stars. The last book that I read in January was actually a novella, and it was The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez, which was part of the Unprobable Meet Cute collection. We have our main character who is a home hospice nurse, and she's actually treating her grandmother, which has to be really hard, right? And she, leaves her car in the parking garage whenever she goes to check on her grandmother. And one day she gets back to her car and she sees an envelope under her windshield wiper. So she reads it, and it ends up being this like super suggestive card. And she finds out it wasn't meant for her. Then we get our other character's point of view, who is the guy in our story, and he actually thought that he was doing his brother a favor and putting it under his brother's girlfriend's windshield wipers. Turns out he got the car wrong, and so then they start this kind of like back and forth message leaving thing on her car where he sends her a message apologizing for the kind of scandalous card. She sends a message back being like, it's totally okay. And they just talk back and forth through these messages for a little while. And it was a really cute story. If I see a man with red tools from Home Depot, I know it's a good thing now. So keep my eye out for that. But ultimately, it was just like a short story. And so I wanted more from Abby Jimenez, if that's even fair to say. I don't know that that's fair to say, but it was a 3-star book. It was just real cute, real sweet, real simple, and what I needed to read while I waited for this book to come out, which I did start in January, but I didn't finish it in January. And so if you want to know my thoughts on this book, I have a whole vlog, and I will also wrap it up in my February wrap up. Did you read any of the same books that I read in the month of January? If so, let me know what you thought. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, my social media is linked down below. I would love to have you join this little family. You can do so by subscribing, and you won't miss any bookish videos from me. Try and upload about once or twice a week, and I have a lot of vlogs coming your way soon. So if that is your thing, definitely stick around. Leave me a comment, leave me a little thumbs up. It really helps support my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.